Welcome to the European Association for Higher Education Advancement's YouTube and podcast channel. So you're getting ready for a job search, and we all know a standout CV is like your golden ticket, Rao. We're doing a deep dive today into the EAHEA article called 14 Simple Yet Effective Ways to Brand Your CV. But trust me, this isn't like the same old boring resume advice.
It's true.
Yeah.
I think what's really cool here is that they talk about like branding your CV. It's not just, listing all your skills and experience. You're trying to create a story almost.
Right.
Like a really unique professional identity, one that's going to like really resonate with employers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And they don't waste any time getting to the good stuff.
Right.
Like right away, they hit you with this 10-second rule. Apparently, you only have 10 seconds to grab a recruiter's attention.
Oh, wow.
That's it. 10 seconds.
Oh, my God.
It's like speed dating, but for your career.
I know. That's a really good way to put it.
Right.
It really shows you like how important it is to make a good first impression. Imagine you're the recruiter. You're literally drowning in these piles of CVs, right?
Oh.
So your CV, it's got to be visually appealing, easy to read. You want to use clear headings and concise bullet points, just anything that you can do to kind of make their job a little bit easier.
Okay, so structure is super important. But what about the actual content?
Right.
What should we be trying to highlight in those super valuable 10 seconds?
So this is where those applicant tracking systems come in.
Okay.
ATS,
Yeah.
These are like software programs. A lot of companies use them to scan your CV for very specific keywords. So you've got to make sure that you're speaking their language.
Wait, so it's like SEO, but for our CVs?
Pretty much, yeah.
Like we have to optimize for the robots first.
Exactly. You have to research that job description so thoroughly. Like, what are the key skills and qualifications that they're actually looking for? And then make sure that those keywords are like front and center in your CV. Like, don't just like stuff them in there, Yeah. Use them naturally within the context of your accomplishments.
Okay, that makes sense. But it's not just about the CV itself, right?
Right.
The article talks a lot about linking your CV to your online presence, too.
Oh, absolutely. Your CV is just the tip of the iceberg. Recruiters these days, they're going to Google you. They'll probably check out your LinkedIn profile.
Right.
Maybe even some of your social media accounts.
Oh, wow.
It's all about building this consistent and professional brand.
Okay, so like imagine your CV is the movie trailer and your online presence is the full film.
That's a great analogy.
Right.
And you want to make sure that that trailer accurately represents the movie. Any inconsistencies between your CV and what they find online could be a red flag.
Oh, totally.
You know what I mean?
So like if you're saying you're a social media guru on your CV, but your Twitter feed is all just cat memes,
right?
That's probably not sending the right message.
Yeah. It's really about showcasing your expertise and professionalism consistently across all platforms.
So we've got our 10-second pitch down, our online presence is polished. What's the next step?
All right, so now it's time to get strategic. The article really stresses how important it is to tailor your CV to each specific employer. And honestly, this is where a lot of people fall short.
Yeah, it's definitely tempting to just like blast out the same generic CV to a bunch of companies, but I guess that's not going to cut it.
If you want to really stand out from the crowd, you can't do that.
Okay.
Remember, you're not just applying for a job.
Right.
You're applying for this specific job at this specific company. So you need to really show them why you're the perfect fit for them.
Okay. So how do we actually do that? What does tailoring actually look like in practice?
So it all starts with research. Go beyond just reading the job description. Dive deep into the company's website. Read their mission statement. Check out recent news articles about them. You can even look at their social media feeds. Really try to understand, like, what are their values? What challenges are they facing? And what are their goals for the future?
So it's like becoming a mini expert on the company before you even apply.
Exactly. The more you understand their needs and their goals, the better you can position yourself as the solution.
All right. So I've done my research. I feel like I understand the company inside and out. Now, how do I translate all of that into my CV?
Okay, so you're going to start by highlighting the skills and experiences that are most relevant to this specific role. Maybe even rearrange the order of your work experience so that you're emphasizing the most relevant positions first. You can even use language from the job description to mirror their priorities.
So it's not just about what you've done, but how you frame it.
Exactly. You want to showcase your value proposition to this particular employer. And remember, tailoring should extend to your cover letter as well.
Okay, so we've got a research, tailoring, online presence. It's a lot to keep track of. But there's one piece of advice from the article that I actually found kind of refreshing, and it's about being upfront about any potential weaknesses.
Yes. It might seem a little counterintuitive, but honestly is always the best policy. Don't try to hide gaps in your employment history or gloss over areas where you might be lacking a bit of experience.
But wouldn't that hurt my chances?
Actually, it can really work in your favor. Recruiters are pretty savvy. They can often spot inconsistencies or attempts to cover things up. Being honest shows that you're confident and self-aware.
Okay, so if I have a gap in my work history because I took some time off to travel or to care for a family member,
Right.
or even just to kind of figure out my next career move.
Exactly. Address it head on. Frame it positively. Like, what did you learn during that time? How did it help you grow? Maybe you gained some valuable skills or insights that are actually really relevant to this new role.
So it's about turning a potential negative into a positive.
Exactly. And it builds trust. It shows that you're not trying to hide anything.
This reminds me of a friend of mine. She was applying for this management role after working as a freelance consultant for a few years.
Oh, okay.
And she was a little worried about how to explain that gap in traditional employment, but
Yeah.
she decided to just be totally upfront about it.
Good for her.
Yeah. She explained that her time as a consultant had actually given her a ton of valuable leadership experience. Like managing projects and teams remotely. And guess what? It impressed the hiring manager. They saw it as a strength, not a weakness.
That's a fantastic example of how honesty can really pay off.
I know, right? It's about owning your story and presenting it in a way that highlights all of your strengths, even the unconventional ones.
Exactly. It's all part of crafting that authentic and compelling narrative we were talking about earlier. But of course, even the best narrative can fall flat if it's full of errors.
Oh, yeah. The article is very clear on this one. Proofread, proofread, proofread.
It might seem obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people submit CVs with typos and grammatical errors.
Oh, no.
It's like showing up to a job interview with spinach in your teeth. It just undermines your credibility before you even open your mouth.
It would be such a shame to put in all this work on your branding and tailoring, only to be undone by a careless mistake.
Right, so triple check everything. Have a friend or a mentor read it over. Use a spell checker. Use a grammar checker. It's totally worth the extra effort to make sure that your CV is polished and professional.
So we've covered a lot of ground already.
We have.
From the 10-second rule and optimizing for ATS to crafting that really compelling narrative and the importance of honesty.
Absolutely. And don't forget about building that consistent online presence to support your CV.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It's all interconnected. But before we move on, I'm just curious, what's something from this deep dive that's really resonated with you? Something that you're going to try and apply to your own CV today?
For me, it's the emphasis on research and tailoring. It's so easy to fall into that trap of sending out generic applications. But taking the time to really understand the company and customizing your CV, that can make all the difference. It shows them that you're not just looking for any job, you're looking for this job.
That's a really great takeaway. And I think it highlights the key message of this whole article, which is
a well-branded CV is about so much more than just listing your skills and experience. It's about telling your unique story and showcasing your value to those potential employers.
It's about crafting a narrative that is authentic, compelling, and tailored to your specific audience.
Exactly. It's about marketing yourself effectively, presenting yourself in the best possible light.
Right.
And, even if you're like a seasoned professional, it never hurts to get a fresh perspective. Have someone else read your CV, someone who can give you some honest feedback.
That's a good point. Sometimes when we're so close to our own work, we miss things. A fresh pair of eyes could catch typos that we might have totally overlooked, or even suggest ways to make our message even clearer.
Totally. It's like having an editor for your career story.
I like that.
And speaking of stories, the article has some really interesting advice about going beyond the obvious. Showcasing your passion and initiative.
Oh, yeah. It talks about immersing yourself in your field even before you start applying for jobs.
Right.
Like volunteering, taking online courses, attending industry events.
Yeah. It's about demonstrating a genuine interest in your field, Not just looking for a paycheck. Think about it. If you were a hiring manager, wouldn't you be more impressed by someone who's actively engaged in the industry, even if they don't have years and years of formal experience?
Absolutely. It totally shows a willingness to learn, to grow, to contribute. I remember when I was transitioning into a new field, I actually volunteered for a relevant organization just to kind of get my foot in the door.
Smart.
And it not only gave me some practical experience, but it helped me build connections and learn the industry jargon.
That's a perfect example. And it's something that you can easily highlight on your CV. Instead of just like listing skills, you can talk about how you actually applied those skills in a real-world setting, even if it was a volunteer role. It adds so much depth and credibility to your profile.
So it's not just about what you know. It's about what you do with that knowledge.
Exactly. And it goes back to that idea of crafting that compelling narrative. Don't just tell. Don't just say, oh, I'm so passionate about marketing.
Right.
Show them by actually talking about that marketing campaign that you helped create for a local nonprofit.
Yeah. It's about bringing your CV to life, making it more than just a list of bullet points. Okay, so we've talked about tailoring honesty, going beyond the obvious.
Yeah.
Is there anything else from this article that you found particularly insightful?
Well, there's one point that might seem small, but I think it's really crucial. The article really emphasizes the importance of a strong cover letter.
Oh, yeah.
Don't treat it as an afterthought.
You're so right. The cover letter often gets overlooked. But it is such a valuable opportunity to really connect with the hiring manager on a more personal level.
Exactly. Your CV is like the facts and figures, the hard data. The cover letter is where you get to inject some personality, some passion, some storytelling.
It's your chance to kind of elaborate on those skills and experiences, to explain why you're the perfect fit for this specific role. And it showcases your writing abilities, which is always a plus.
Exactly. And remember, tailoring is just as important for your cover letter as it is for your CV. Don't just regurgitate the same information. Use the cover letter to highlight specific points that are relevant to that company and that role.
So if I'm applying for a job at a tech startup, my cover letter might have a different tone and focus than if I was applying for a position at like a traditional corporation.
Precisely. Do your research, understand the company culture, and tailor your writing accordingly. For example, if the company really prides itself on innovation and creativity, you might want to showcase your own innovative thinking or problem-solving skills in your cover letter.
It's about speaking their language, but in your own voice.
Exactly. And remember, the cover letter is also a great place to address any potential concerns or gaps in your CV proactively. For example, if you're making a career change, you can use the cover letter to explain your motivations and how your previous experience is actually relevant to this new field.
So it's about being strategic.
Yeah.
And anticipating their questions.
Right. You're essentially guiding them through your story, highlighting those key points that make you such a strong candidate. And don't be afraid to show some personality. A well-written cover letter that's both professional and engaging can really make you stand out.
Okay, so we've got the CV, the cover letter, the online presence. It's a lot to manage. But I think this article does a really great job of breaking it all down into manageable steps.
And remember, it's an ongoing process. Your CV isn't a static document. It should evolve as you gain new experiences and refine your career goals.
That's a really good point. It's not about creating the perfect CV. It's about continuously improving it, adapting it to reflect your own unique value proposition.
Exactly. And as you go through the job search process, don't be afraid to experiment. Try different approaches. Get feedback from others. Constantly refine your approach.
It's about treating your CV as a living document, a work in progress that reflects your growth and development as a professional.
Absolutely. And remember, the most important thing is to be authentic, to be confident, and to really showcase your passion.
Well said. I think we've covered a lot of ground here today. From optimizing for ATS to crafting that compelling narrative to building a consistent online presence to the power of a well-written cover letter.
And of course, the importance of proofreading.
Right. We can't forget that. A polished and error-free CV is so essential for making a good first impression. But I think the key takeaway here is that branding your CV is about so much more than just following a set of rules or formulas.
It's about really understanding your unique strengths and then presenting them in a way that resonates with those potential employers.
It's about telling your story and making them believe in you.
Exactly. It's about showcasing your value and demonstrating why you are the perfect candidate for the job.
And, speaking of showcasing your value, the article also mentions like focusing on the future, not just the past.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was a really interesting point.
It's true. It's about framing your experiences in a way that really demonstrates your potential. You're not just telling them what you've done, you're also kind of showing them what you're capable of achieving in the future.
Like instead of dwelling on that summer job you had in college,
Yeah. Right.
you're highlighting the transferable skills that you gained that are relevant to your current career aspirations.
Exactly. And one way to do that is by using what the article calls success statements.
Okay.
These are like concise, impactful statements that quantify your achievements and really demonstrate the value that you delivered in those previous roles.
So instead of just saying, like, managed a team of 5, you might say, led a team of 5 to exceed sales targets by 15% through implementing a new customer engagement strategy.
That's a great example. It's not just about listing your responsibilities, it's about really showcasing the impact you made.
And I think that ties back to the idea of tailoring your CV. You're not just presenting like a generic list of accomplishments.
Right.
You're highlighting the ones that are the most relevant to the specific job that you're applying for.
Exactly. It's about demonstrating how your past successes can actually translate into future contributions for this specific employer.
So even if you're like early in your career and you don't have this super long list of accomplishments, you can still frame your experiences in a way that showcases your potential and highlights your transferable skills.
Exactly. It's about thinking strategically, presenting yourself in the best possible light.
All right, so we've talked about branding, tailoring, showcasing your value. What else kind of stands out to you as like a key takeaway from this deep dive?
For me, it's the emphasis on authenticity. Yes, we want to present ourselves professionally, and we want to highlight all of our strengths, but it's important to do it in a way that feels genuine. Don't try to be someone you're not. Let your personality and your passion really shine through.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you want to find a job that's a good fit for you, not just a job that you think you can get.
Exactly. And I think that really comes across in your CV. When you're being authentic, when you're genuinely excited about that opportunity, that energy is contagious. And it really makes you stand out from that crowd of generic applicants.
So to kind of wrap things up, if you could give our listeners just one piece of advice to apply to their CV today, what would it be?
Think of your CV as a story. What is the narrative that you want to tell? What are the key chapters that really highlight your unique skills, your experiences, and your potential? And how can you present that story in a way that's both compelling and authentic?
That's such a good way to think about it. It's not just a document. It's a representation of you.
Exactly. And remember, the European Association for Higher Education Advancement has tons of resources to help you on your journey, from articles like the one that we discussed today to workshops and webinars.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into branding your CV. Hopefully you found it insightful and helpful as you get started on your job search.
Absolutely.
Remember, your CV is your first impression. It's your chance to make a really lasting impact. So craft your story carefully, showcase your value, and don't be afraid to let your personality shine through. And please don't forget to follow the European Association for Higher Education Advancement on YouTube and social media.